Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of the College Sports Report. I'm your host, as always, Brandon Buckner. On this week's edition of the College Sports Report, I'll be updating you on how things are going with college sports, and also I will give you a couple updates on pro sports as well. I do hope everyone is enjoying their Wednesday, and guess what? It's Halloween season. They could be canceled due to COVID-19. So kids who are looking forward to trick-or-treating this year might have to wait until next fall. But without further ado, let's get started with episode 4 of the College Sports Report. Some college football news this week out of the college sports world. And we get these stories because of COVID and how COVID is very important to the sports realm of possibilities of how sports are controlling the atmosphere of them slowly coming back to some kind of normal, let's see, in college sports. So there are possibilities. So a story went out this week about coaches and how they must set an example by wearing their face masks. So fans shall be cheering from their seats or mugging for the cameras without face coverings. Schools must mandate safety checks for anyone entering the stadium. That's the only way they're going to get through the most tenuous of seasons, somewhat safely at least. In the midst of an unchecked pandemic that has already claimed more than 200,000 American lives, the biggest game of this past weekend produced all sorts of disturbing images. Georgia, the third-ranked team in the country, requires fans to wear masks when they enter Sanford Stadium. And while they're on the concourses, they could take them off at their socially distant seats. So naturally, hardly anyone was wearing a mask while watching a 27-6 victory over Auburn in their first top 10 matchup of the season. Sure, Georgia was following Southeastern Conference guidelines, and school officials insisted that they maintained a safe environment for an outdoor event. But the message was not good enough, especially when Bulldogs coach Kirby Smart seemed to spend most of the evening with his mask dangling beneath his nose or down around his neck. Georgia coach Smart acknowledged that he must do a better job with the most basic and arguably most important of safety protocols. A simple step that tens of millions of Americans are following every day, despite the inconvenience. Smart conceded he's been talked to by the commissioner and several others. He held up a mask to drive home his mea culpa. He just have to figure out a way to get it tighter and more comfortable with it, he said. The biggest thing is when you're in the middle of coaching and talking to somebody, you have to get comfortable being able to leave it up and leave it on. And that's probably the toughest thing. Then, not only then there's LSU, the reigning national champion, and another SEC powerhouse, Joe Burrow, who was SEC MVP of that championship season last year. We've already heard Coach Ed Orgeron usually drop the most of his team already contracted the coronavirus, as though it was nothing more than a common cold. On Monday, the Tigers doubled down by announcing they'll stop doing the CDC-sanctioned wellness checks at stadium gates. Instead, they encourage fans to do a self-assessment of their health before they leave the house. So, LSU officials say they want to cut down on the long lines to get inside Tiger Stadium. And for good measure, they also lifted the ban on alcohol sales, creating an even greater chance of irresponsible conduct from those in the stands. Look at it this way, folks. Since the fans won't have to wait as long to get inside, there'll be even more time for drinking. Seriously, it's baffling that anyone in a position of authority pondered the options and know this was the way to go, especially in a state that has one of the nation's highest COVID-19 death rates, roughly 1 in every 850 residents. To its credit, the NFL has gotten serious about its safety protocols. Sunday, Pittsburgh and the Titans game was postponed because the Tennessee Titans, there were a lot of positive tests on the Tennessee Titans. The Minnesota Vikings were in a scare, but they had their game against the Texans, and the Saints were in a little bit of a scare, but they had their game against the Lions. By the way, all teams went on Sunday. So think about this. So in the NFL, Commissioner Roger Goodell sent out a memo warning the league's 32 teams of penalties, including potential forfeits of games for any violations that force changes in the schedule. The league already doled out hefty fines to three coaches, and Denver's Vic Fangio, San Francisco's Kyle Shanahan, and Seattle's Mr. Pete Carroll, who filmed their exposed noses at the league's masks mandate. They were hit with $100,000 fines, while their teams got docked $250,000. The SEC and other conferences should consider similar measures for coaches who don't wear their masks. But don't hold your breath too long about it. We reached out to the league Tuesday, and all we got was there's always room for improvement before being pointed to an article in which Georgia officials said they were largely pleased with their safety measures for Saturday night's game. So what? Georgia and LSU are hardly the only schools worthy of scrutiny. In a season-opening upset of the defending national champs, new Mississippi State coach Mike Leach was caught many times with his face uncovered. He blankly violated league rules and then cast doubt on whether masks were needed at all. He says he tried to do my best with it, but once you're 6 feet apart, you can't help but wonder if some of this isn't homage to politicians, Leach said, doing his best to send the most irresponsible message to his players. Thankfully, there are coaches like Duke's David Cutcliffe who understand the gravity of the situation. He says, I'm first a believer that it's important to other people that you wear a mask more important to other people than it is to you. He also said that he promised our players and I promised our parents that the number one priority that we would have would be the health and well-being of those young men. Of course, it was always going to be difficult to maintain a safe environment in a high-contact sport like a football, played in close quarters. You've already seen positive tests, and you will surely see many more before the season is done. But the goal must be to get through this without anyone suffering long-term health problems, or, heaven forbid, dying. And I quote, if our players are disciplined enough to do all that they're doing to stay playing football, why would we not do the same? Cutcliffe said. It's personal discipline. It's the best way we're going to face anything in life and handle tragic circumstances or tough circumstances. We're just going to go with it. About the support, sports fans, this was very sad to me because I think as though, okay, coaches, you're like in your 70s, 80s, you're more at risk than these young guys that are out here playing football. Of course, young guys can still die too, but you're putting yourself more at risk if you don't wear these masks. If you feel like the masks are taking over your life, don't think that, because masks are to protect you from getting the virus, to protect you from droplets coming in your nose or in your mouth or in your face. And they say don't touch your face or your nose or your mouth because if droplets continue to swarm in your face, you will contact COVID. That's why masks are to protect you from the droplets. But if you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a football coach, especially in college and the NFL, then you're putting your own self at risk. So don't blame anybody else. Don't blame the commissioner. Don't blame the fans for this. Blame yourselves because you're the one who are screwing up your life with COVID-19. And the death rates are really growing right now. And if you screw up, if you screw up your life and coaching, and you screw up your life and your ability to live in a world now with COVID, hopefully it'll get better. But I'm saying right now you have to be safe. You have to follow the protocols and what you're doing. And what you're doing is not safe right now, coaches. And I truly believe that you all will do the right thing from this day forth and starting with next week's games. But if you don't, if you want to get sick, go ahead and do it. Go ahead. It's your life, man. You want to screw it up? Go ahead. See, I have to give some tough love to these coaches because these coaches weren't born yesterday. They weren't born yesterday, and they know the protocols. They know the safety measures and all this, and they're not doing it. They're not doing it. So you pick your poison. You know. So right now, we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna talk about Rice's volleyball, soccer, and cross country teams because COVID is all over the place, and we don't know what's gonna happen in the fall, if we're gonna have sports or not. So the story went about Rice's volleyball, soccer, and cross country teams would all be in the midst of their seasons right now. Instead, due to schedule changes, cancellations, and postponements, they are currently preparing for their respective upcoming seasons amidst an unprecedented level of uncertainty. It's been 334 days since the Rice soccer team last played an official game. The game, a 2-0 loss in the second round of the Conference USA tournament to eventual champions from the University of North Texas, occurred months before the COVID-19 pandemic would throw the entire college sports world into limbo. Since then, the team has gone through an offseason of schedule changes and uncertainty, culminating the CUSA's late August announcement that all sports aside from football would be postponed until the spring of 2021. As of now, their season isn't set to start until February 4th, another 120 days from now. Well, since the postponement, the soccer team has been attempting to adjust to the new schedule. According to head coach Brian Lee, the team shifted from preparing for games in August to their off-season training program and eventually to a preseason training routine. Currently, the team is training 8 hours a week, including on-field training sessions twice a week and strength and conditioning week for the rest of the week. The seasons are modified to meet COVID-19 safety protocols, including the use of masks. In mid-October, the team will transition to a 20-hour week training schedule, which will continue until Thanksgiving break. Volleyball, on the other hand, faces challenges of their own. The sport is played indoors, and it is harder to maintain physical distance while playing volleyball than it is while playing soccer. According to head coach Jenny Volpe, the volleyball team is currently in what she referred to as their fall off-season program. This has consisted of modified workouts that maintain physical distancing measures and require players to wear masks. According to Volpe, these consistent adjustments have forced the team to adapt, but the postponement has seemed like a roadblock as the teams look to build off that success. Volpe said that the longer offseason has helped the team in a number of ways. Volpe also said that the constant change has even helped the team's mentality. So both the women's and men's cross-country teams are in slightly different situations. While the NCAA cross-country championships, along with most meets, have been moved to the spring. C/USA opted not to move its annual cross-country championships, which are currently scheduled for October 31st. Because of this, the team has had to prepare as if they are in season, despite the fact that the bulk of their competitions are still months away. So according to men's cross-country head coach John Warren, this has complicated their training program. The women's cross-country team is handling this unusual schedule slightly different. According to head coach Jim Bavin, the team is still not certain that they will participate in the CUSA meet, so they are just trying to stay ready. Bavin said that training has been different than it would in a normal year. The team has been meeting 3 or 4 times a week since early September. In addition to the use of masks, the team has been running in groups of 2 or 3 instead of running in large packs as they normally would. He also said they've modified their training to accommodate the altered schedule. Despite all of the changes and uncertainty, each team must still prepare for their upcoming seasons, according to Kostashevich. The best way to do this is to focus on one day at a time. I 100% agree. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen with COVID in fall sports, but right now they're just trying to see what can be a great outcome of this. You know, Thanksgiving break is right around the corner, turkey, everything is going to happen. So once you get to Thanksgiving, you're at that peak. When you get to Christmas break, sports are done. You have your Rose Bowl parade, your championship college games in January. You got the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. We don't know if there's going to be a Rose Bowl parade. We don't know if there's going to be a Rose parade in January. All these things I will update you all on once I get more info on the college sports report. But as of right now, I don't see fall sports happening because there have been so many cases out here of COVID outbreak, and now more people are getting sick, and so we don't know what's going to happen until the spring. So unless we get some vaccines going, and I don't know when that's going to happen, but if we get some vaccines going, then sports can return in the spring, and hopefully, because that's really in time for NBA to start back up, because the NBA is still doing their NBA finals. But I'll get to that story in a little bit on the college sports report. Moving on here. So the Pac-12 conference is joining the other 4 most powerful leagues